Who is Konrad Curze? Konrad Curze, also known as the Night Hunter, was one of the Primarchs created by the Emperor, raised on the hellish world of Nostromo and plagued by prophetic visions of death. Curze became known as one of the most brutal and unstable Primarchs, a creature of terror and darkness that set him apart from his brothers. Ultimately, he betrayed the Emperor and joined with the War Master Horus in the Horus Heresy. A child that would come to be known as Konrad Curze was first recorded as crashing through the surface and onto the core of the night-shrouded world of Nostromo. The crust of Nostromo bore high quantities of mineral adamantium, which provided the basis of the planet's immense mining and purifying industries. The vast majority of the planet's population lived in abject poverty, toiling in the mines, while the rich grew in affluence, exploiting the already downtrodden workers. Crime ran mostly unchecked, depression was inescapable, and overpopulation was kept in check more by suicide than by any other measure. Unlike many of the other Primarchs, Curze was not taken in by any family and was left to raise himself. He spent his early life surviving off his wits and determination, feeding himself by hunting the feral animals that roamed through the vast city of Nostromo Quintus. He was continually plagued by visions of the darkest possible future, horrifyingly potent waking dreams that would curse him throughout his life. During his short youth, Curze was pitched into a destructive cycle of persecution and murder. Focusing on the criminal elements of Nostromo society, his vigilante actions began small, intervening when he witnessed something he believed to be wrong, but rapidly escalating into hunting down those he believed had committed transgressions. At first, several people prominent within the city's corrupt hierarchy disappeared. Officials were found hung from high windows, body parts blocked stormwater drains. Many of the corpses found were so horribly beaten by their assailant that identification was impossible. Within the year, the crime rate of Nostromo Quintus fell to near zero. Society underwent massive changes, most notable of which was self-imposed curfew that came into being. Curze saw hope for his inhabitants of his world. He had become the only object of fear and hate within the society, appearing before the nobles that had survived his vigilante purge. As the Night Hunter, he was the first monarch of Nostromo Quintus. He assimilated knowledge almost greedily and became considered a fair and temperate ruler. The unpredictable pattern of benevolent wisdom and hideous vengeance ushered in a new level of efficiency and honesty. A short time into the reign of the Night Hunter, the Emperor's Great Crusade reached the outskirts of the Nostromo system. The coming of the Emperor was an event that had been prophesied in Nostromo's history, an event that would lead to the planet's downfall. The Emperor, Fulgrim, Ferrus Manus, Rogaldorn, and Lorgar landed on Nostromo and led a delegation to the center of Nostromo Quintus on foot. The citizens of Nostromo, adapted to the near constant darkness, could not bear to look upon the radiance of the Emperor. Most wept as the healing light he projected reflected off of the rain-silk streets into their faces. Those brave enough to look upon him directly were blinded. At the end of the broad road leading to Curze's palace, the Primarch stood, waiting for the delegation to approach. As they did, he succumbed to a vision so potent and horrifying that he tried to claw his own eyes out, but was stopped by the Emperor. Curze then looked at the Emperor and his brothers, and it is said he foresaw the fates of them all, as well as his own death. He then looked at his father, and the following dialogue ensued. Konrad Curze, be at peace, for I have arrived and intend to take you home. That is not my name, father. I am Night Hunter, and I know full well why you intend for me. When Curze first took command of his legion, he was vicious and horrifying to behold, but nonetheless was a regal leader with a clear sense of justice. Curze quickly adapted to the teachings of the Imperium, studying the complex doctrines of the Adeptus Astartes under Fulgrim's tutelage. Curze was eventually placed in command of his Space Marine Legion, which he renamed the Night Lords. However, Curze's relations with his brothers were strained. The Night Lords' brutal tactics caused controversy among the Primarchs, most notably Rogaldorn and Vulcan. However, while he was widely reviled, Curze himself states that he didn't hate any of his brothers save Corax. The two were extremely similar in their appearance, tactics, and upbringing, but unlike Corax, Curze did not retain his humanity or dignity, whereas Corax did, despite his hellish upbringing. Curze himself did not know if he hated Corax out of self-loathing or the fact that he saw the Raven Lord as still be holding on to naive details despite his upbringing. For his part, Corax stated that he hated nothing about Curze save his methods of waging war. Relations with Vulcan were even more strained, with the Primarch nearly fighting Kurtz over the fate of Korrikan. Sometime after, Kurtz had a particularly violent vision where he saw the future monstrosity he was destined to become. Kurtz was horrified by his future, and when he snapped out of his trance, he realized that he had murdered one of his archivists. This was the first known person Kurtz killed whom he considered innocent, and it was at this moment that Kurtz realized that he himself now deserved punishment. Later in a campaign with the Imperial Fits, the Emperor's children and in the Charot system had learned of the renewed crime and anarchy on his home world. Falling into anguish, Kurtz tried to confide in his brother Primarchs, Fulgrim and Rogal Dorn, but the reaction was less than favorable to his claims. When Fulgrim revealed Kurtz had told him of disturbing visions of civil war, Dorn confronted Kurtz on the matter. Finally, snapping from Fulgrim's betrayal of confidence, Kurtz attacked and wounded Dorn, as well as massacring several Imperial Fifths that were guarding him before taking the Night Lord's fleet to Nostromo. A few Imperial pursuit craft arrived just in time to see the Night Lord's laser batteries firing into the hole left by Kurtz's arrival decades earlier. Nostromo's core overheated and the world exploded. Kurtz's terrible acts caused him to become susceptible to the whispers of Horus. Kurtz's terrible acts caused him to become susceptible to the whispers of chaos. When the Horus heresy broke out, Kurtz was quick to swear his legion to the forces of War Master Horus. Kurtz revealed his treachery during the drop site massacre, launching his legion against the loyalist forces of the Raven Guard, Salamanders, and Iron Hands. During the battle, Kurtz and Logor battled against Korax. After the massacre, Kurtz captured Vulcan, but found that the Perpetual Primarch could not be killed despite his best efforts. After unleashing every torment imaginable on Vulcan, the Salamander's Primarch was eventually able to escape Kurtz's clutches. 2 years after the drop site massacre, Kurtz engaged Lionel Johnson in a series of hit-and-run battles all over the Thramis sector. Eventually, Kurtz would leave a message for his brother to meet him on the planet Talgalsa. Here, he would reveal some prophecy to Leon. Afterwards, a fight would ensue between the two Primarchs and their respective troops. Finally, Kurtz would slash the Leon's throat, and the Dark Angel Corswain would stab Kurtz in the back. Both legions retreated. Haunted by visions of Sanguinius' death, Kurtz then infiltrated the Emperor of Imperium Secundus' throne room on Makarich, badly wounding Ezcalon and using him as a hostage. Kurtz revealed to the Angel that he not only foresaw the death of Sanguinius, but his own as well. Kurtz had come to believe that the scattering of the Primarchs, his own life on Nostromo, the Horus heresy, and his own eventual death were all part of the grand scheme by the Emperor. Kurtz wished to know why Sanguinius chose to be a slave to the Emperor and why he had not accepted the offer of demons on Cygnus Prime to become their champion. When Sanguinius expressed his continued faith in their father, Kurtz gave the Angel a chance to strike him down. An offer Sanguinius refused, and instead pleaded to the Night Hunter that there was still final chance to join the Loyalists and seek redemption, stating that Horus's rebellion was nothing in the grand scheme of things. The galaxy was doomed to eternal war, and only chaos existed in the end. Kurtz set off an explosive trap and escaped from the throne room. Kurtz was able to send a suicide bomber to destroy a strategically important bridge on the Imperium Secundus capital. However, Al Johnson was able to corner Kurtz in the Alma Mons region of Makarich. After a vicious battle, Kurtz was defeated by Al Johnson. However, the Lion could not bring himself to slay his demented brother, and instead broke his back. Kurtz was brought into custody and put on trial before Sanguinius. During the trial, Kurtz admitted to his actions but refused to accept guilt because he claimed he was made to act that way. Thus, they were not crimes. L. Johnson sought to kill Kurtz, but Sanguinius prevented him. Later, Guilliman and Sanguinius stood before Kurtz in judgment and to execute him. Guilliman said that he should be the executioner, and Kurtz said that it was just like the Emperor. However, Sanguinius was filled with his psychic power and attacked Kurtz to his cries that it was not how he would die. Suddenly, the Lion appeared, asking for Sanguinius to stop. Troops came into the room demanding that L. Johnson surrender, but he responded that Kurtz was able to see the future, and he repeated that Kurtz's claim that his death would be at the hands of an assassin was sent by the Emperor. Thus, to Leon was proof that the Emperor was still alive, and Sanguinius recognized that his own visions of death would also be true. Guilliman demanded that what would come of Kurtz. L. Johnson knelt before his brothers and promised that he would be Kurtz's gaoler, and Kurtz laughed at the confusion of the scene. Sometime later, a way to Terra was clear, but blockaded by the fleets of Horus. Guilliman and L. Johnson agreed to distract the blockade while Sanguinius and the Blood Angels raced to Terra, as was their destiny. Sanguinius took custody of Kurtz and brought him aboard the Red Tier, declaring that he would face the Emperor's judgment. However, once aboard the vessel, Sanguinius put Kurtz in a stasis coffin and said that just as he was about to meet his destiny on Terra, so must Kurtz follow his foreseen path. Sanguinius declared that he would freeze Kurtz in the stasis coffin and jettison him into space. Though it may take millennia for the Imperial assassin Kurtz had foreseen killing him to find him, one day fate would catch up. Kurtz was frozen in the coffin and shot into the void of space. Within his stasis capsule, Kurtz floated through the void of space for the rest of the heresy, eventually being discovered by the human salvage ship Sheldrune several years after it had ended. A hidden Imperial assassin of the vessel broke the surface of the capsule, awakening Kurtz, who proceeded to massacre all on board. In the end, only Kurtz and a crewman known as Elvar and a Calidus Temple acolyte Gunn remained. Gunn was able to alert his temple to Kurtz's general location in the galaxy before meeting his end, while Elvar was taken by Kurtz as a slave to navigate the Sheldrune. As the vessel lacked a warp drive, the trip to Kurtz's intended destination, Talgalsa, would take 4 years. During that time, Kurtz tormented Elvar while also instructing the slave on his philosophies. After years of travel, the duo arrived at Talgalsa and rendezvoused with the Night Lord's force under Talos Valkyron. However, Elvar saw a glimpse into Kurtz's mind, coming to the realization that the Night Haunter in fact had doubts regarding his visions and beliefs. To keep the secret safe, Kurtz had the Night Lords dispose of the slave. Eventually, Kurtz was able to rejoin his legion. After the invasion of Terra, the Night Lords did not splinter and flee like the rest of the traitor legions. Instead, they continued to attack the Imperium. However, their tactics seemed to change, portraying a self-destructive desperation. Kurtz himself had gradually lost the sanity and sense of purpose that had the respect of his legion, and in his last days would frequently erupt into fits of violence, incoherence, and sadism. The Emperor himself, wishing to disband the Night Lords forever, dispatched half of the Calidus Temple of Assassins to terminate the Reganade Primarch. Konrad Curze was eventually killed and assassinated by Calidus Machen. He fully knew when he would be slain down to the anointed hour, and in the times before his death, conversed with the corpse statue that he addressed as the Emperor. Surprisingly, the corpse spoke back, and the Emperor apparently assured Kurtz that his insanity was never his fault, and he had acted as intended until chaos interfered. Kurtz broke down when the Emperor questioned his belief that the fate was predetermined, stating that he himself had chosen this path. He tore the corpse puppet to pieces, and it is unclear if it was actually the Emperor speaking or a mere hallucination. Thereafter, he completed his memoirs known as The Dark, hiding the book away within his fortress. Later that night, it is believed the assassin Machen was allowed to infiltrate his palace on Talgalsa, as she encountered no guards between herself and his throne room. Confronted with her, he simply said, "Your presence does not surprise me, assassin. I have known of you ever since your craft entered the eastern fringes. Why did I not have you killed? Because your mission and the act you are about to commit proves the truth of all I have ever said or done. I merely punish those who had wrong, just as your false emperor now seeks to punish me. Death is nothing compared to vindication." It is believed that Kurtz allowed himself to be killed. He saw himself as a murderous and corrupt villain, the very thing he sought to destroy. Regardless, his final words were considered one of the great enigmas in the Imperium's history.